My FPL Game Week 10 transfer plans. It has been another rollercoaster week, and we're all debating whether we want to keep Erling Haaland, we want to sell him, bring in someone like Mo Salah into our midfield, or what to do with Dominic Solanke, who has once again blanked for Spurs despite having some good fixtures on the horizon. There have been other injury updates with Gabriel going off and Bukayo Saka coming back. So we're going to take a first look at my team going into Game Week 10 and talk about what transfers I might do going into next week with 2 free transfers and just over 0.0 in the bank. What is up, everyone? FPL Harry here. Before we dive in, 2,000 likes is the aim. Subscribe if you are new around here. And apologies, I know this is normally a Sunday evening video, but I flew home from Portugal. You'll hear me not talk about it anymore, but we are home. We are back in the normal setup. It is very early on Monday morning, so I'm recording it hopefully to get it out early enough for you today. We're going to take a first look at my team going into Game Week 10. Before we do that, just a quick update. I did actually get a green arrow in Game Week 9. Things went quite well. Of course, I kept Bukayo Saka. I brought in Cole Palmer. I had Chris Wood in there as well. I did not play the triple captain, so I ended up on 75 points. It moved me from 540k up to 280k. It was set to be even better before that very late Mo Salah goal, which it dropped me about 80,000 places. So not the end of the world, still a very good game week, and I'm very happy with it. Of course, I held my nerve on not selling Saka, and now suddenly my team looks in a much better state going into Game Week 10 than I initially thought it would do. And maybe if I didn't have Saka, that would be another transfer I'd be planning for at some point in the next few weeks as well. So I've got to the Saka Palmer setup that I've been wanting to get to, and it was a priority for me to do that over doing other things in my team, like buying Phil Foden, for example, like fixing maybe my defenders, getting rid of an Arsenal goalkeeper or something like that. So there are a few positives to take from that week. And, I had a little bit of patience and I decided to hold on to Saka. Now, part of that was because I had already made 2 transfers in bringing in Ryan Aït-Nouri and Cole Palmer, both of who scored this week. So that was positive, and it did just kind of force me to keep Saka. And fortunately, he did come back, he did play 85 minutes, and he looks like he should be good to go for the next few weeks as well. So looking at my lineup, we've currently still got double Arsenal starting here. David Raya goes away to Newcastle. Now, Newcastle have been far from it, so I don't mind playing one of them. We also have the boost that Fabianski started for West Ham, and Areola's not been great so far this season. You remember he scored a dubious own goal in the previous game week. Fabianski has Nottingham Forest away though, so I still think I'd prefer playing David Raya this week, but it is good in some weeks if I have double Arsenal and they have a difficult fixture. I potentially could play Fabianski if we see he keeps his place in that West Ham lineup. Now, moving into defence, Ryan Aït-Nouri came in, fantastic transfer, very happy with him going forward, some really nice fixtures, but it's worth caveating he's now on 4 yellow cards, so when he picks up that 5th yellow card, he will then miss a game. I've also got Greaves, who's injured. We have Gabriel, who's a doubt as well. Rico Lewis, who is a minute's risk at some point. And then we have Mykolenko, who's had his injury worries in the past. At the moment, this offense looks okay, but I am completely aware that at 1 week, things might absolutely fall apart and I might be left with 1 fit defender or 2 fit defenders going into a game week. We do have Gabriel, as I mentioned. He went off for Arsenal in about the 55th minute before the second appearance point. They'd already had their clean sheet wipeout though. Newcastle away, then it is Chelsea away, then the nice fixtures start in game week 12. I personally don't feel like I need to sell Gabriel. I can play Aït-Nouri, Rico Lewis and Mykolenko in my team pretty much every single week. Well, both in game week 10 and in game week 11. If Gabriel's likely to be out into game week 12 or onwards, then maybe I'll consider selling him. But for now, I still plan on holding on to Gabriel due to think he's one of the best defenders in the league and in FPL as well. So Aït-Nouri, I'm happy with. Gabriel and then Rico Lewis, I'll hold on to for now as well. At some point, he might get benched, but I'm hoping he gets a rest in the cup midweek. And then we've got Mykolenko on the bench away at Southampton. He will come in for Gabriel if Gabriel is unlikely to feature. But if I don't know that news on Gabriel, I think I have to bench Mykolenko once again. I'm not starting him over Lewis, and I don't think I'm starting him over Aït-Nouri as well. So that is what it is. Into midfield, Palmer, Saka, very happy with, not going anywhere. Brian Mbeumo, very happy with, not going anywhere as well. Like, I'm not doing either of Palmer to Saka to Salah. Like, if I buy Salah, it will be in the expense of Erling Haaland. We'll talk about that in a moment. Then we've got Mavididi. He's been very poor, been a transfer that hasn't worked. I'm not happy with him in my team. It is what it is. He's got one last game away at Ipswich this week, which I might keep him for. I might sell him before that as well if I buy Salah, for example. But He can start for me one more week before Semenyo's fixtures start looking nice next week in game week 11. But he's got Manchester City this week, so he's on the bench. Slanky and Chris Wood. Chris Wood, very happy with, of course. One of the best players I've had so far this season. He is yellow flagged. He did have some ice on his foot at full time once he was subbed off. He did say he expects it to be nothing and he thinks he'll be fine, but there's one to keep an eye on if you're looking to buy him this week, that he did have ice on his foot after the game and he was substituted. Solanke as well has been a massive disappointment, one of the players I'm absolutely looking to sell, along with Erling Haaland. Haaland is weird. He's either going to be sold for me or he's going to be my captain this week. He's currently got the captaincy armband, but he may well be sold before the deadline. I need to have a real think about whether I want to sell him. I know I want to sell Solanke at some point. He's not worth the money. He's got Aston Villa at home, Ipswich at home in the next two before Manchester City in game week 12. I could keep him for the next two home games and hope they turn it around a little bit, but I'm not really sure he's worth the money and I could end up getting rid before then. And then it's just Haaland, because if I keep Haaland, the transfers I'm making are very little sideways moves, like Solanke to Cunha, Mavididi to Rodgers, Mavididi to someone else, like maybe changing Greaves, maybe changing Semenyo, like very little transfers in my team, unless I decide to go and sell Erling Haaland. Of course, it would be to Mo Salah. Salah continues to perform well. He doesn't haul massively, but he gets enough that it is what we want from a player at his price. The big thing for me on Haaland is the captaincy. If I sell Haaland and he scores twice and the player I bring in scores once or doesn't score, that is a massive swing, because not only you get the 2 goals from Haaland, you're effectively getting 4 goals from the captaincy. Whereas the player you have captain, for example, if I captain Salah and he scores once, he doubles that to 2 goals and I'm suddenly 2 goals behind where Erling Haaland is. Now, of course, Salah gets more points for the goal, so maybe it's only 1, but there is still a big captaincy dilemma in my head on Erling Haaland. So before I tell you what I plan on doing with Haaland, let me know in the comments down below. Are you Haaland in or are you Haaland out? Are you going to be selling him at some point over the next few weeks? So just to put that into a little bit of perspective, I have a few transfer options. The first thing just to speak about, if I ever get room to upgrade Greaves to Konate, it's absolutely a transfer I want to do. Konate looks fantastic for Liverpool. The fixtures from about game week 14 onwards start to look really nice for them as well. He's 5.3 million, and Trent's role in this Liverpool team I don't think is massively worth the 7 million. I would like to get to a point where I've got Rico Lewis, I've got Gabriel, I've got Aït-Nouri, I've got Mykolenko and Konate, and I feel like my defence is set without spending too much money on it. It's not necessarily a transfer I want to do this week, and I don't have the money to do it. But if I did a Slanky to Cunha, I'm still 0.1 million short of doing those moves. So it's one I've got my eyes on for the horizon, but I don't necessarily think it's going to happen in the short term. I'm really focusing on Haaland, Slanky and Mavididi with my transfers. So I'm pretty certain that Cunha will be in my team going into the game week 10 deadline. He could come in for Solanke. That would probably be the sensible transfer. I'd keep Haaland for the next couple. I wouldn't be able to get to Mo Salah for the time being, though. Or I could do Haaland to Cunha and then do Mavididi up to Mo Salah. I have the money to go and do those 2 moves this week, and I've got 2 free transfers in the bank as well. Haaland to Cunha, Mavididi to Salah, or Solanke to Cunha. And the reason Jackson is in there is he's the other striker that I'll bring in probably in game week 12. So if I do the Haaland move out this week, in game week 12, I'll probably do Solanke to Jackson. I have the money in the bank to do that. But if I just do Solanke to Cunha this week, I may well consider Haaland to Jackson and Mavididi to Salah in a few weeks' time. So I don't think I'll be buying Jackson this week, but he is the other forward I have my eyes on in the future. I just need to decide on Haaland versus Salah. I know Haaland hasn't performed well. That's 3 blanks and 1 goal against Southampton, but he put up his second highest XG in ever in a Premier League game for Manchester City. Over 2 XG, and if he suddenly bangs in 2 or 3 of those chances, we're not selling him. De Bruyne is expected back at some point. I'm favouring not selling Haaland at the moment and just doing Solanke to Cunha this week and reviewing Haaland in a couple of weeks, but I definitely have a route to Salah, selling Mavididi if I wanted to this week. So just to answer a few of your other questions going into this video as well, because I know a lot of you are looking at early transfers. First of all, what to do with Brennan Johnson. Personally, I would keep him. There aren't as many midfielders. If you don't own Brian and Boomer, of course, you can move there. Outside of that, I would give him Aston Villa at home and then Ipswich at home before selling him. Next up is Dominic Calvert-Lewin. He's been very poor. The data's been okay in some matches. He has Southampton away this week. But if I had him, and I understand those of you that do have him are getting frustrated with him, Southampton away this week is a fixture. If you have other things to do, you could keep him for 1 more week. but I probably would be looking to sell him. Would I do Calvert-Lewin to Chris Wood with a transfer this week? Probably not. I probably would give it one more week away at Southampton, but I don't own Calvert-Lewin and I don't have the frustration. And if you decide to do it, I wouldn't stop you at all. And then finally, when is the best time to play your wild card? Personally, if you still have it, you can play it in any week, of course. If your team needs it this week, absolutely go for it. I do still think game week 12, there are some nice fixture swings you can target there. It is also the last international break of the season. You get 2 weeks to play it. Game week 12 would be the best time to play it left this half of the season before we get our second wild card in December. So just to go back and have a look at how my team is looking, it is all down to Haaland. I've got two options this week. Do I do Haaland to Cunha and Mavididi up to Mo Salah? Or do I just do Solanke to Cunha and reassess Haaland in a couple of weeks, given he would probably be my captain this week away at Bournemouth anyway? That's where we're at. Even if Gabriel is likely to be out, I will probably just bench him for Mykolenko. If Chris Wood is likely to be out, I would probably end up just benching him for Semenyo anyway, because I like Chris Wood as a long-term pick. So it is really just the Cunha to come in. Do I do it for Solanke with one transfer, or do I do it for Haaland and then do Mavididi all the way up to Mo Salah? That is what I'm looking at this week. I've got 2 free transfers. I haven't made the transfers yet. It is Monday morning. I'll keep an eye on price changes, but I think it's unlikely I do it early on in the week, but we'll see. We will see. Let me know in the comment section down below any questions you have about my team. Which of the moves would you do? Are you going to be selling Haaland? Are you going to be keeping him for the next few? Or maybe you don't own him at all and are looking pretty smug at the moment without him. Any questions you have about your team, drop it in the comment section down below. 2,000 likes is the aim. Thank you all for watching. If you need some more content, the Know the Score podcast with myself and Luke Kempner discussing the Premier League's action will be out this evening if you want to go and watch it, 6 p.m. I'll drop a link in the description. I'll put the link above when it does go live as well. Have a great start to your week, and I will see you all again very soon.